What if the stories you've heard about monsters, demons, and shadowy figures weren't just legends, but warnings? Across cultures and centuries, ordinary people have described encounters with beings that defy explanation, figures that appear in the night, whisper at the edge of sleep, or follow their victims long after the first sighting. These accounts are too consistent, too unsettling, to dismiss as imagination. Tonight, we're stepping into that world of whispers and shadows, where reality and nightmare blur. Picture this. It's midnight, your house is silent, and there's a knock at the door. You peek outside. Two children stand waiting. Their voices sound polite, almost rehearsed, as they ask to be let in. But something feels wrong. When you look closely, their eyes aren't brown, or hazel, or even shadowed by the night. They're entirely black, like two voids staring back. Reports of these so-called black-eyed children stretch back to the 1990s, when journalist Brian Bethel recounted his chilling encounter. Two boys approached his car asking for a ride. Harmless enough, until he noticed their eyes. Solid black. No whites. No pupils. He felt paralyzed, unable to think clearly, overwhelmed by dread. Somehow, he forced himself to drive away, convinced he had narrowly escaped something inhuman. Since then, the stories have spread worldwide. The details remain strikingly consistent. The children appear in parking lots, lonely roads, or suburban neighborhoods. They often travel in pairs. Their voices are flat, their words strangely formal, as if they've memorized a script. Witnesses report pets going berserk, electronics shorting out, and an atmosphere so charged it feels like the house itself is holding its breath. And here's the strangest part: they never break in. They wait, patiently, almost like they need permission. Some say this detail connects them to ancient vampire lore, where creatures could only enter if invited. Others believe they're aliens, or demons wearing the skin of children. Whatever they are, every story ends with the same warning: do not let them inside. But children aren't the only visitors who come in the night. Imagine waking at 3 a.m., paralyzed by the sense that someone is watching you. You turn your head, and in the corner of the room stands a tall, dark figure. His outline is unmistakable: broad shoulders, long coat, and a wide-brimmed hat. He doesn't move. He only watches. They call him the Hat Man, and countless people across the globe claim to have seen him. Unlike fleeting shadows that vanish when you blink, witnesses insist this entity lingers, sometimes for minutes, sometimes longer. He has been spotted in homes, in hospital rooms, even in military barracks. His silence is suffocating, his presence charged with malevolence. Victims often describe a crushing weight on their chest or the inability to breathe just before he appears. Some find him standing in doorways. Others say he leans over the bed, close enough to feel. He never speaks, yet many describe the overwhelming impression that he feeds on fear itself. Skeptics explain it as sleep paralysis hallucinations. But here's the catch. How can people from different cultures, who've never spoken to one another, describe the exact same man? The coat, the hat, the faceless stare, it's always the same. And for some, the terror doesn't end there. Victims claim that once you see the Hat Man, you're marked. He comes back. And if one shadow can follow you, another might already be waiting closer than you think. Gather around a Ouija board and sooner or later you'll hear this name whispered: Zozo. At first, the planchette slides slowly, spelling random nonsense. But then the letters lock together. Zozo. Over and over. Faster and faster. The temperature in the room drops. The lights flicker. And suddenly, the game feels like anything but fun. Reports of Zozo stretch across decades and continents. From the United States to Europe, players describe the same chilling experience. The moment Zozo makes contact, the session turns violent, rapid planchette movements, obscene language, threats of death. And unlike ordinary spirits, this one doesn't stay behind when the board is closed. It follows. One of the most infamous cases involved Darren Evans, who claimed his family was tormented for months after contacting Zozo. Shadows stalked their home, scratches appeared on his skin, and nightmares plagued every night. Others describe Zozo's ability to mimic the voices of loved ones, tricking people into trust before revealing its malicious intent. A signature trait is the figure-8 motion of the planchette, looping endlessly, as though caught in a trap it wants to share. Researchers argue it's internet folklore, but the sheer consistency of reports raises darker questions. And here's the most unsettling part. Some say the mere act of speaking Zozo's name invites it. But not all terrors need an invitation. Some come to you, unbidden, in the dead of night. You open your eyes in the middle of the night, only to realize you cannot move. Your chest feels heavy, your lungs straining for air. And then you see her, an old woman crouched on top of you, her face inches away. She doesn't blink. She doesn't breathe. She only stares. This is the Night Hag, a figure so ancient her story spans continents and centuries. In Scandinavia, she is called the mare. In Newfoundland, people speak of being hag-ridden. In Japan, it's kanashibari. Different names, same terror, paralysis, suffocation, and the sense of an evil presence pressing the life out of you. Witnesses describe her as a gaunt crone with long, tangled hair and claw-like hands. Some hear whispers in unknown languages. Others hear nothing but the pounding of their own heartbeat. Science dismisses it as sleep paralysis, the brain caught between dream and waking. Yet whole villages have sworn that people died in their sleep because the hag stole their breath. Even stranger, some claim that when the paralysis breaks, the hag doesn't vanish, she lingers in the corner of the room, still watching. And she isn't alone. Imagine lying frozen in your bed as dark shapes shift along the walls. They're human in form, but made entirely of shadow. They stand silently at the edges of the room, watching, waiting. These are the shadow people, and thousands across the world claim to have seen them. Some appear as small, darting figures. Others are tall and looming. Witnesses sometimes describe glowing eyes, or cloaks, or hats. But the dread they radiate is always the same. Many victims report that the shadows aren't content just to watch. They press down on the chest, whisper in voices too faint to understand, or loom closer until the fear is unbearable. Doctors call it hallucination, a byproduct of sleep paralysis. But the disturbing consistency of descriptions across centuries and cultures is harder to explain. One chilling account tells of a man who woke to find 3 shadow figures at the foot of his bed. When he finally broke free from paralysis, they were gone, except for a burned handprint seared into his sheets. But sometimes, the figure isn't faceless. Sometimes, it wears a mask that feels eerily human. In 2009, the internet created one of its most enduring monsters, Slender Man. Tall, faceless, and possibly thin, he's portrayed as a nightmare born online. But here's the unsettling part. Reports of figures matching his description existed long before the meme. Children in different countries have spoken of a tall, faceless man visiting them in dreams, whispering from the trees, or standing outside their windows. Families have reported seeing him in photographs, blurred, half-hidden, watching from the background. And when researchers dug deeper, they found stories of faceless beings in old folklore. In Germany, there was Der Grossmann, a tall figure who preyed on children. In Ireland, the Fear Dub, or Black Man, was said to lurk in forests. Witnesses today describe the same unnerving traits: unnaturally long limbs, a black suit, no mouth, no eyes. Some say he lures children into the woods. Others claim he disappears the moment you approach. And here's the strangest part: the more you talk about him, the more likely he is said to appear. If Slender Man is only fiction, why do people who never heard of him describe the same figure? And if he isn't fiction, then speaking his name may be enough to draw his attention. But while Slender Man may be modern, some monsters are far older, stalking villages long before the internet. In the Philippines, few legends are as feared as the Aswang. By day, it may look like your neighbor, your friend, even your own family. But when night falls, it transforms into something monstrous. Accounts describe it as a shapeshifter, taking the form of a black dog with glowing eyes, or a winged creature that circles rooftops in silence. Some stories say it has a long, hollow tongue used to drain the life from the sick, the unborn, or the dying. Families tell of claw marks left on their roofs after hearing scratching sounds at night. Pregnant women often claim to feel watched, convinced the Aswang is waiting outside their homes. Folklorists dismiss it as a myth created to explain disease and death. Yet belief in the Aswang is still strong today. In rural communities, families arm themselves with garlic, salt, and talismans for protection. Villagers travel in groups after dark, unwilling to risk being alone. Is it only folklore? Or a predator that has walked among humans for centuries, hidden in plain sight? And across the ocean, another creature has tormented people for over 200 years. Deep in the Pine Barrens of New Jersey, locals whisper of glowing eyes, bat-like wings, and a scream so piercing it freezes you where you stand. For over 2 centuries, this legend has haunted the region. The story begins in the 1700s with a woman known as Mother Leeds. Cursed with a 13th child, she gave birth to something that transformed before her eyes. It sprouted wings, hooves, and horns before flying out into the night. From that moment on, the so-called Jersey Devil stalked the forests. Farmers claimed livestock were slaughtered overnight. Travelers spoke of a winged beast chasing them down lonely roads. Even police officers reported hearing its inhuman cries. In 1909, hysteria gripped the entire state when hundreds of sightings were reported in a single week. Schools closed, factories shut down, and armed posses scoured the forests. All they found were strange tracks in the snow, leading nowhere. Though skeptics dismiss it as folklore, sightings continue even today, stretching into Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. Witnesses still describe the same creature, darting across roads or soaring above treetops. But while the Jersey Devil may be tied to one region, some apparitions appear everywhere, even in places meant for faith and safety. Picture stepping into an abandoned convent. The air is thick with silence. Suddenly, from the shadows, a nun appears. Her robes are familiar, but her face is twisted, her eyes hollow pits. Witnesses describe overwhelming dread, as though holiness has been turned upside down. Reports of the demonic nun stretch across Europe and the Americas. She's been seen in convents, churches, even private homes. In some cases, she clasps her hands in silent prayer at the foot of a bed. In others, her face contorts into rage before vanishing into darkness. One notorious case comes from Italy, where nuns claimed a dark figure haunted their halls nightly, slamming doors, extinguishing candles, and stalking the chapel. Paranormal researchers suggest it is a demonic entity mocking religious figures to shatter faith. Survivors often say the experience feels like a direct attack on their belief, with whispers of blasphemy echoing in their ears. Is she the restless spirit of a devout woman turned bitter, or something much darker wearing a disguise? Whatever she is, the demonic nun appears where people expect safety the most. And then there's the figure some believe brings disaster itself. November 1966, Point Pleasant, West Virginia. 2 young couples driving late at night spotted glowing red eyes staring from the darkness. Moments later, a massive winged figure rose into the air and followed their car. That was the first of many sightings, and soon, the whole town was on edge. For 13 months, dozens of residents reported encounters with a creature they called the Mothman, half man, half bird, with 10-foot wings and a stare that pierced the soul. Some saw him perched on rooftops. Others spotted him standing on bridges, watching silently before vanishing. Witnesses described cars stalling, pets disappearing, and phone lines filled with strange interference. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. And just like that, the sightings stopped. Was it coincidence, or was the Mothman a harbinger of disaster? Even today, sightings of similar creatures are reported around the world, often just before catastrophe strikes. From earthquakes to industrial accidents, people claim to see glowing eyes and wings in the shadows. Was the Mothman a demon, a cryptid, or an omen we still don't understand? One thing is certain: where he appears, tragedy soon follows. From black-eyed children knocking at your door to winged omens foretelling disaster, these stories share a terrifying thread: ordinary people, across time and cultures, describing encounters that shouldn't be possible. Science explains some away as hallucinations, folklore, or imagination. But if that's true, why are the stories so eerily consistent? Maybe these figures are echoes of something ancient, appearing in forms we can barely comprehend. Or maybe they've always been here, watching, waiting for the moment we notice them. So tonight, if you hear a knock at the door, see a figure in the corner, or glimpse eyes glowing in the dark, what will you do? Pretend you never saw it, or face the possibility that the legends were true all along? If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more chilling stories.